Hello, this is our first lection, and we talk about the concept and role of logistics in supply chain management. Materials for this lecture were borrowed from my colleague, Gavrilov Dmitry. Various definitions of logistics can be found in the scientific literature. Logistics as a science and as a field of activity has been developing since ancient times. Here is the definition of logistics, which will determine the composition of the topics and the structure of our course. Logistics is the science of organizing and managing material and related information, financial flows in supply chains. Material flow, the movement of inventory items from the sender to the recipient. Information flow is the movement of information from its source to its consumer. Financial flow is the movement of money in cash or non-cash from the payer to the recipient. Each of the above types of flows is characterized by speed and intensity. Flow rate show how quickly materials, information, or money moves from one point to another point in the logistics system. The flow rate shows its volume per unit of time. That is the amount of materials, information, or money transferred from source to recipient per unit of time, second, minute, hour, shift, day, week, month, or other. Supply chain, a set of organizations, people, activities, and information involved in the process of converting primary raw materials into a finished product and the movement of raw materials or finished products from the supplier of primary raw materials to the final consumer. Supply chain management is a set of methods and approaches aimed at integrating the efforts of all participants and the supply chain to meet consumer demand in the most efficient. Thus, the main tasks of supply chain management can be considered two tasks. Ensuring the target level of customer service or optimization of costs throughout the supply chain. The goal of supply chain management is therefore to achieve a given level of customer service, which is one of the key factors in the competitiveness of the enterprise in the most cost-effective way. In this case, it is usually necessary to look for compromises, since at the same time the best solution to each of these problems is difficult to achieve. It can be seen that there are four main flows in the supply chain. The flow of goods and services from suppliers to consumers. The flow of information about the demand and properties of products and services from consumers to suppliers. Financial flow, mainly moving from consumers to suppliers. And return flow of goods, return of surplus products, defective products for repair or other. This is return logistics. The main and supporting processes are distinguished. The main processes include processes that create add value and are located in the so-called value chain. Customer value refers to the properties of a product or service that the customer would like to see and for which he is willing to pay. Processes in the supply chain are highlighted in the figure. The supporting processes include processes that do not directly create value but are necessary for the successful operation of the enterprise. There are three most essential points in supply chain management. Supply chain coordination. Efforts to synchronize the supply chain and increase its throughput. Coordination includes the following main elements: access of percipients, access of percipients in the supply chain to information, end-to-end repeat movement of information along the entire chain. Harmonization of planning system and methods, material movement, pricing, inventory levels, and other. Reducing the complexity of the supply chain, reducing costs in the supply chain, and increasing the throughput of enterprises in the supply chain. Differentiation in the supply chain, ensuring that the supply chain policies are consistent with the goals of ensuring the competitiveness of products. In particular, we can talk about different channels of product delivery. And depending on the type of product. Different types of products may require different characteristics of the supply chain. And reconfiguration of the supply chain. This is the name of the change in the composition and number of links in the supply chain or the relationship between them. Changes can be in the length, width, intensity of channels, specialization of channels in certain sales markets. In almost any supply chain, sooner or later, the movement comes when it is necessary to rethink the characteristics of the supply chain and reconfigure accordance with the characteristics of demand and factors of the competitiveness of the process of supplying products to customer. Conceptually, there are two main approaches to supply chain management: vertical and horizontal integration. Integration allows you to configure the supply chain and coordinate its functioning. With vertical integration, one organization directly controls the links of the supply chain. That is, in this case, decisions on configuring the supply chain and coordinating its work are made from a single control center. With horizontal integration, different parts of the supply chain are owned by different owners, and organizations need to agree on how the supply chain will function to coordinate the supply chain. Sometimes with horizontal integration between enterprises, partnerships are formed, sometimes developing into strategic alliance. And next term is evolution of supply chain management, conflict management in supply chain. These materials, again, I borrowed from my colleague Gavrilov Dmitry. The organization okay. The organization of supply chain management undergoes evolutionary changes both throughout the life of the enterprise and throughout the development of the supply chains themselves. There are several main stages in the development of the supply chain management system. Zero stage, typical for supply chains with high stability of material flows in terms of volume and structure. This stage is characterized by a narrow range of products and the stability of the demand for it. Such a situation was the beginning of the 20th century. Then the task was to increase the volume of production of standard products to supply them to consumers. The task of providing variety of products was not set. Supply chain management of this type is generally simple since material flows are stable in volume and rhythmic in time. The basic approach in inventory management in such supply chains is simple. Replenish stock of what we are running out of stock of, even order what and how much we used to. During stage 1, you can see this on this slide, of the evolution of supply chain management, the product range became diversified. The demand for it was unstable, and an integrated supply chain management system had not yet been built. This state can be called multiply lack of coordination. This stage of supply chain development is characterized by the following main features. From the point of view of working with counterparties, suppliers or customers, communications are as a rule transactional of one time in no systemic measuring are taken to build long-term relationships. The organization fulfills customer orders without special consideration of costs. That is methods of cost control and their optimization are not applied, since high profits covered the inefficiency of the supply chain. The supply chain management function is viewed by the organization as a cost center that doesn't add value. In the field of technology, production and information organizations have not yet built a holistic system where all the elements are connected with each other and coordinated. In the field of information technology, in production, separate equipment installed, not synchronized in terms of performance. Inventory management is often carried out by ear and on the personal experience of managers. Databases are local by divisions of the enterprise and are not coordinated in formats. So the task of generating summary reports of the results of an enterprise's performance often turns into a difficult and thankless job of extracting multi-format data. The manual reconciliation and consolidation. At stage 2, or second stage, supply chain management at the enterprise begins to implement some measures to improve supply chain management by they are predominantly local and nature, and do not go beyond individual divisions of the organization. This stage of development of supply chains is characterized by the following main features. Individual measures are implemented in the field of the effectiveness of chain management. Supplies and quality management of individual function of activity. Producement, production, development of the new projects and other. However, they are not yet coordinated with each other into a single supply chain management system of the enterprise. Supply chain management maintains enterprise competitiveness as an efficient, low-cost, and integrated function. There is an understanding of the importance of controlling costs in the supply chain in order to create a more attractive offer for customers. Businesses are beginning to realize that there are significant reserves hidden in the supply chain to save resources. Supply chain management is focused on reducing the total cost of supplying products to customers, which is associated with the decrease in profit margin due to increased competition in the goods market and the inability to cover the inefficiency of supply chain. In the field of production technologies, the organization seeks to equip itself with modern equipment for automating logistics processes in order to reduce their labor intensity and increase the production capacity of the supply chain and the enterprise. Information technology at this stage usually lags behind production technology, since the overwhelming share of investments is made by the enterprise in production and logistics technologies and not in information technologies. Stage 3. Stage 3 of supply chain management is associated with the integration of enterprises internal supply chain management based on modern information systems, including the integrated planning function. This state of development of supply chains is characterized by the following main features. Functional areas are integrated into a single system, connections between them. Built and standardized the processes are and formalized. Supply chain is focused on the creation of product design. Design solution, properties, and options, aimed at reducing the complexity of the supply chain and reducing costs in the supply chain. That is, at this stage of supply chain management, the development of products and services in the focus of the organizations. Setting the requirements for the supply chain. Investments are made in an integrated enterprise information system to provide information exchange between management functions and to keep a single integrated database up to date. Stage 4 of supply chain management is associated with the integration of the external supply chain management of the enterprise, which forms the strategic advantage of the enterprise. This stage of supply chain management is characterized by the following main features. Internal and external supply chain are integrated into a single system, including a two-way flow of information about the demand for products and about the processes of product delivery has been established. Information transparency is throughout the entire supply chain. Supply chain management is seen as a function that makes a significant contribution to the development strategy of the organization. At this stage in the leadership of the organization, you can find such a position as the Director of Supply Chain Management. Information and knowledge is disseminated between the links of the supply chain in the real time using unified interfaces for the exchange of information between information systems of enterprises in the supply chain. The level of development of the supply chain is assessed using key performance indicators. Key performance indicators. A system, KPI, a system of quantitative indicators that reflects the performance of business processes, departments, employees. There are many sources where you can get information about the key performance indicators of supply chains, but in our opinion, the SCORE model gives the most systematic view of them. What is it model? SCORE model, supply chain operation reference, is a supply chain management operation model that defines which business processes and how should be implemented to achieve the best performance in the supply chain. SCORE is embedded in a more complex system of operating models and communicated with them. The composition of the model is as follows. Flows are SCORE supply chain management operating model, PL core product and product portfolio management model, in other words, product lifecycle management model, and D core is a model for managing product development and supporting processes. C core is sales and customer service management model. Enterprise processes, according to the SCORE ideology, dovetail with supplier processes and customer processes, which realize the idea of moving to the highest stage of the supply chain evolution discussed earlier. The SCORE model. The SCORE model contains 4 key elements that are closely related to each other. Processes, performance indicators, or in other words, metrics, indicators or metrics, best practice, requirements for the knowledge and skills of the organization's employees involved in the supply chain management business processes. Key indicators are linked to the objectives of the enterprise, are able to show problem points in the organization's activities in the terms of supply chain management. The standardization of key indicators allows you to compare the enterprise with the other enterprises, both within the industry and from similar industries, that is the perform benchmarking. It is especially important to track changes in indicators over time and analyze the causes and problems in the organization's activities. The SCORE model has a hierarchical their level system of metrics. Lower level metrics are used to diagnose problems at the higher level. Let's consider only metrics of the highest level. These metrics aim to access 5 core properties of supply chain management processes. SCORE performance indicators. First one, reliability reflects the ability of an enterprise to fulfill its obligations to customer. It means for the quality of products and services, the quantity of products supplied, delivery times, and proper documentation of the supplied products. Responsiveness reflects the speed of delivery process, how long it takes an enterprise to complete an order. Agility reflects the ability of an enterprise to scale the volume of this activity. That is, to increase or decrease the volume of activities without loss to the enterprise. Costs reflect the cost of a product or service and the cost then enterprise in cars in managing supply chains. Asset management reflects the incoming efficiency of the use of fixed assets and working capital of the enterprise. Each attribute contains one or more metrics, which in turn are expanded to more levels down. Obviously, the above metrics are not equivalent in different sales markets for different groups of customers who formulate their properties in terms of reliability, speed, flexibility, and options in different ways. There can be many there can be many options, but in general, it is customary to divide all supply chains in terms of properties set into two classes, economical and agile. They show two very different strategies that an enterprise can implement for a given supply chain. If an economical strategy focuses on the cost of production and the cost of supply chain management, then a maneuverable strategy focuses on services characteristics, speed and flexibility. Requirements for the quality of products and services can be high in both strategies. A lean supply chain is generally more typical for projects with relatively stable demand in established conservative markets, while a flexible supply chain is more typical for products with an unstable nature of demand and non-price competition. In general, the choice of supply chain strategy usually reflects a decision about whether the organization would strive to differentiate itself from competitors for the better in the level of service provided to customers. Service can include characteristics of speed, flexibility, and reliability of the organization as a supplier, or try to compete at the expense of low productions and distribution costs. Efficient use of working capital. Combining a high level of services and low costs is problematic, if not impossible, and therefore a business needs to make strategic choices for each market its service. The enterprise level supply chain strategy is translated down into the internal supply chain. Conflicts are also inevitable in the internal supply chain. The question is how to manage them. This should be held by the chosen strategy, which is checked with making decisions at the tactical and operational levels of management. And the last slide. This slide outlines the main components, the three main components in the management of organization: marketing divisions that work with customers in target sales markets. Production divisions involved in the production and delivery of products to the customer. And finance divisions that carry out financial and economic management of the enterprise. The thickness of the arrow shows which tasks of the management component are considered main and which are secondary. And the direction of the arrow shows in which direction are the indicators change if the main indicator move in the direction decided for the control component. Marketing seeks to improve customer service, often at the expense of the operational efficiency and at the cost of substantial inventory. Manufacturing strives improve production efficiency, often reducing service levels while creating significant inventory. Finance has a negative attitude towards inventories as they tie up working capital, but at the same time have a positive attitude towards improving service levels. This contributes to higher revenue and operational efficiency, which helps to reduce costs. Conflicts resolution should be supported constructively chosen and clearly formulated strategy. Then the way of resolving this inevitable conflict will be in strategic interests of enterprise. And that's all what I want to say to you.